When my sister accused me, my life fell apart. But I found the strength to start over, and today I am the woman I never imagined I would be. My name is Christina. I'm 31 years old today, but the story I want to tell began when I was 24. Back then, I lived in the same city as my entire family, had a stable job as an administrative assistant, attended college at night, and led a simple but happy life. I was always the person who was there for every birthday, every Sunday lunch, helped my older sister with the kids, and did everything I could to be present. I truly believed that our family was close, that we could count on each other, especially my sister and I, since we grew up close. But I was completely wrong. The first sign that everything was about to fall apart came in such an absurd way that if someone had told me, I probably wouldn't have believed it. My sister married a guy considered the perfect son-in-law, handsome, polite, well-off, and extremely friendly to everyone. But I never felt comfortable around him. He had a strange way of looking at me, making comments disguised as jokes, and I always brushed them off, never imagining it could turn into a nightmare. Until one day, out of the blue, my sister called me furious, screaming, accusing me of hitting on her husband. I didn't understand a thing. That day, everything changed. My sister, who always said I was her best friend, accused me of being a homewrecker. She said her husband told her I sent provocative messages, that I kept making advances when they came over. I was shocked, looked for screenshots, tried to defend myself, showed my phone, but no one would look. Within hours, my phone exploded with messages from my parents, uncles, cousins, all attacking me, calling me every name in the book. And the worst part was hearing from my own mother. You were always jealous of your sister. Now you've shown who you really are. For the first few days, all I could do was cry. It was like I'd woken up from a nightmare. I tried to explain to everyone that it was a lie, that I would never do such a thing, but no one listened. My mother blocked my number. My father called me a disgrace. My mutual friends started to drift away. It was as if everything I was had been erased by a disgusting lie, and I couldn't prove a thing. I went to work with my heart in my mouth, ashamed even to walk down the street, afraid of being recognized as the slut who tried to destroy her sister's marriage. The pressure was so great that I started getting sick. I had anxiety attacks, stopped eating properly, lost weight, and my skin broke out in spots. One day, I sat down in my boss's office and quit. I couldn't work anymore. Going home was torment, and I lived in a rented apartment I shared with a friend who also ended up moving away. Everything I'd built over 24 years turned to dust in a matter of weeks. I didn't even have the strength to think about the future. I just wanted to escape that place. That had become a living hell. That's when I made the most painful decision of my life, to leave everything behind. With the little money I had, I bought a ticket to another city, in a neighboring state where I didn't know anyone. I enrolled in a technical course in healthcare because I'd always enjoyed helping people and needed a fresh start somewhere. I arrived with 2 suitcases and a completely broken heart. I went to live in a simple little room in a boarding house. I had no luxuries, no one to tell, but for the first time in weeks, I could breathe without fear of being attacked. I won't lie, I cried almost every night in the beginning. The loneliness was so profound, it felt like I'd been erased from the world. But little by little, through tears and sleepless nights, I began to rebuild. During the course, I met people who treated me without judgment. I landed an internship at a clinic after months of struggling. I started going for walks, looking at myself in the mirror without shame. I made new friends, and I started smiling again without pretense. Each small achievement was a huge victory. No one had any idea of the history I carried, and this gave me the chance to simply be Christina, without the weight of an unfair accusation. Little by little, I began to feel alive again. After 3 years, my life was completely different. I had already graduated from my technical school, was working full-time at a hospital, had a group of friends I considered my new family, rented my own apartment, and had peace. For the first time, I felt proud of myself, without needing anyone's approval. I won't say I've forgotten what happened, because it scarred my soul in a way that can never be erased. But I learned to live without carrying resentment all the time. Until, out of nowhere, when I no longer remembered to look back, my sister appeared. She appeared via an Instagram message. It took me a while to believe it. I glanced at the screen several times, thinking it was a fake profile, but it was her. The message said, "I know I don't have the right, but I need to talk to you. Please listen to me." My heart raced. I spent days without responding, mulling over everything I'd experienced, remembering every cruel word I'd heard, every tear I'd cried alone. I knew opening that door could shake everything I'd built, but curiosity, I confess, got the better of me. I replied, saying I didn't want any trouble, but I could hear what she had to say. We set up a video call. When the screen opened, I didn't recognize the woman. She looked 10 years older, with deep circles under her eyes and a defeated expression. It wasn't long before she started crying, saying she was separating because she discovered her husband was a scoundrel, that he had multiple lovers, that he lied about everything. She said she'd discovered old messages he had with other women, and by going through the files, realized he'd fabricated evidence to incriminate me. She cried, saying she believed him because she wanted to maintain the image of the perfect marriage. I remained silent, frozen. Hearing that was like reopening a wound I'd fought so hard to close. She continued, saying she now knew I was innocent, that she felt like the worst person in the world for not trusting me. She apologized, begged for forgiveness, said our mother was also sorry, that they were all embarrassed because their Prince Charming had turned into a nightmare. She wanted to reconnect. She wanted me back, to be part of the family again. When I hung up the call, I stared at the blank screen and cried. It wasn't a cry of relief. It was a cry of anger, of exhaustion, of everything. In the days that followed, my mind was in chaos. Part of me screamed to accept it, to go back, because I'd always dreamed of having my family back. But another, stronger part said, they abandoned you when you needed them most. I began to remember everything I'd experienced alone, the pain I'd faced, every moment. I'd had to stand up for myself with no one around. It wasn't just about forgiveness, it was about dignity. And I realized that, deep down, I'd already freed myself. There was no point in returning to an environment where they only sought me out when their masks slipped. My sister insisted, sending me messages, videos of the nephews I hadn't seen in years, audios of my mother crying and apologizing. I listened to it all. I didn't ignore it, because I needed to hear it, I needed to feel it. But the more I listened, the more certain I became of one thing. I had restarted my life to be happy, not to carry the weight of others' guilt. I responded to my sister respectfully, without resentment, but clearly, I forgive you. I don't harbor any hatred, but I'm not going back. I no longer want to be part of the same dynamic that destroyed me. The reaction was an uncomfortable silence. Then came messages trying to make me feel guilty. Family will always be family. You're being proud. But for the first time, I managed to stand my ground without breaking down. I was no longer that girl begging to be heard. I was a woman who had rebuilt herself with her own hands. And I knew that giving up that contact was protecting my peace, my mental health, and everything I'd worked hard to build. I didn't feel revenge. I felt freedom. Time passed, and little by little the messages diminished. They returned to their hometown, while I continued my life here. I changed departments in the eye hospital, began a specialization, and traveled alone to see new places. I gave myself the right to live without the burden of pleasing anyone. I made new friends, some closer than any blood ties I've ever known. I rediscovered the pleasure of smiling without fear, of being proud of myself, without needing the approval of the family that rejected me. I relearned the meaning of the word family. Today, I look back and see that, despite all the pain, I became a stronger, more independent, and much happier person. Forgiving freed me, but keeping my distance saved me. I understood that a true new beginning isn't when people admit they were wrong, but when you recognize that you deserve more, that you don't have to prove anything to anyone. I started my story over from scratch, with dignity, strength, and self-love. And I will never again accept being treated as anything less than I deserve. One of the greatest lessons I learned during this process is that those who share your blood won't always be there for you in your toughest moments. And that's okay. Life has shown me that family isn't defined by last names, but by actions, respect, and genuine support. The friends I made in my new state became true brothers and sisters, people who held my hand through the tough times, who celebrated my every small achievement. From them, I learned what genuine affection meant, friendship without self-interest, and presence without judgment. I've also learned to prioritize my mental health. Before I would deny myself, living for the approval of others, and killing myself to be the perfect daughter and the devoted sister. Today, I'm aware of my limits. I know how to say no without guilt, and I put my peace above all else. I started therapy after everything that happened, and it was a turning point. I realized that the Christina who allowed herself to be destroyed to please her family no longer exists. Today, I care for my physical and emotional health with care and responsibility. There were times when I questioned whether I should go back and reconnect, especially for my nephews. But over time, I realized that love is no excuse for accepting emotional abuse. I know I can love my nephews from a distance, and I can wish well for my family without having to be present where I was rejected. And I sincerely hope they learn from all this and become better people in the future. But I'm not responsible for anyone's redemption, only for my own happiness. Another important thing that happened was that, after all this, I finally managed to finish my degree. The girl who fled her own city with no direction graduated, specialized, and now works helping others. This gave me a greater purpose, something I hadn't seen before. Knowing I could make a difference in someone's life with my work filled a void I didn't even know existed. I turned all the pain into fuel to become someone I'm proud to be. My greatest victory wasn't rebuilding my financial life or earning a degree, but rather looking in the mirror and recognizing myself, understanding that I am enough, that I don't need to diminish myself to fit into tight spaces, that I shouldn't carry guilt that isn't mine. I own my story, my journey, and when I finally understood this, life opened doors I never imagined. I met incredible people, traveled to places I'd only dreamed of, experienced moments that would never have happened if I'd remained stuck in the past. Sometimes I get messages from acquaintances from my old town saying how everything has changed there, how their family is full of fights, how the mask of perfection has completely slipped. I read them and just silently thanked them for having the courage to leave, for not getting caught up in their chaos. I could have stayed there, trapped in a toxic cycle, trying to prove my innocence, trying to please those who never wanted to listen to me. But I chose the harder path, starting over from scratch. And looking back, I see it was the best choice I could have made. If I could give advice to anyone going through something similar, I would say, the pain will pass, and you will be surprised by your own strength. Starting over is scary, lonely at first, but it is liberating. It's not worth living trying to fix what destroys you. It's worth choosing yourself, investing in your own growth, building new stories in new places, with people who see you for who you truly are. Life is much bigger than the opinions of those who didn't know how to value you. Today, I no longer carry anger. I carry pride in the woman I've become. I carry gratitude for the doors that opened when I finally put myself first. My story isn't about revenge, it's about liberation. And if someone ever tries to make you believe you're worthless because you made a mistake or were wronged, remember what I learned. Your life is yours, and your happiness doesn't depend on the forgiveness of others, but on the courage to get back up when everything falls apart. I started over. I rebuilt myself, and I won.